It's actually insane how relevant Liz Lemon is decades later. This is like the first scene of the entire series of her arguing with a grown man in line about hot dogs. And it's such a fascinating comparison because Liz is such a successful producer. She has a really good position. She manages a lot of different people, yet she will get so trivial over the smallest things. I don't think guys understand enough the relatability of somebody like Liz Lemon, especially to a girl in her 20s. And that's what's interesting too, is she doesn't even really look like a girl in her 20s. Like, she is in her 30s. She's kind of at that like child rearing age where she keeps having things like that come up, but she's still so relatable to even like college age girls, because underneath like all of the makeup we might be putting on ourselves, like, we are a Liz Lemon inside. And I just love the fact that like Liz and Jack always have this relationship of this like mentor-mentee. Totally non-romantic. I had a friendship like that in college. Shout out to my friend Reggie in college. I think it's so great that there's a relationship like that depicted on TV, because this is so centered around the jokes and the dynamics of everything. It's funnier when it's not. And I think there needs to be more dynamics like that on TV, because there are friendships, some people believe it, some people don't, that are always going to be platonic. Him and I even wanted to write like a screenplay about the platonicness of our friendship because we thought it was so special. And a show like this, it brings out the comedy. It brought out so much of the best parts of ourselves. Just friendships in general have such a strong grip on this show. I feel like much more than romance does, which I love that Tina Fey decided to do. I also love that multiple times throughout the series, Tina Fey wants to bring in this idea of like, I'm a strong, independent woman, but then shows how much she's been relying on men to do things. I really appreciate when a show like this has commentary on both sides of the political sphere. She's showing the fault in both sides. She's showing that, yes, there is an unspoken rule that like women can't do things by themselves, but there's also an unspoken rule of like, well, we've gotten used to guys doing a lot of the things we don't want to do too. So she says a teenage girl is vicious and vulnerable. That reminds me of Mean Girls. It makes me realize that there are so many things I think that go on in Tina Fey's mind about this whole concept and dynamic of teenage girls in general. And now in 30 Rock, she's lifted the decades a few and now talks about all the dynamics that happen between women in their 20s and 30s. I also love these moments when it flashes back to what Liz's interpretation of the moment was, and it was that other people were bullying her, or she had another instance where like Jenna had shows and she would always compliment them, but then in the other person's flashback, she was always really, really mean and disrespectful and passive aggressive. It's a great mirror into the idea that just because it's how we remember it, it's not how other people remember it. And even though we feel like we're the heroes of our own stories all the time, we can also be the villain in someone else's story. Again, it's like these friendship moments are the best parts of it, like where she covers for Jack because Jack made a total mistake. He was backstage and she was doing this hype up speech and everyone heard him because his microphone was on. So she did this like improv thing. I also love the commentary on the fact that improv is like so embarrassing. As a theater kid in Liz Lemon's situation, like she majored in theater tech. Obviously Tina is an actor and in the entertainment industry, and I love how much she digs on it and how ridiculous it is and how cringe and embarrassing it is. I think in this new generation of Gen Z, like not wanting to be cringe and embarrassing, it's such a great reminder as we watch this to say you can be successful, you can work at 30 Rock and also have been those like weird improv people in college. I'm like thinking back to all the embarrassing things I did in college and I did in theater. You kind of have to start somewhere in order to get to all of your goals. And especially in the entertainment industry, there are so many cringe moments. Like it's cringe until it's not. And it's really not cringe when you're on like the red carpet and all these things. But when you don't have a big of an audience, like you're basically doing the exact same thing that you did when you were in college. There's just many more people seeing it and it's romanticized more. There's fancier cameras. You want to watch me eat the steak in front of you. And she's like, okay. And she's completely finished with it. I have to explain to men in my life how this is relatable because they just don't understand at all. They don't understand how funny it is and how relatable it is, especially for a woman who is in this position again. Like, she has authority. She is really successful. Like, she works in New York City. She's constantly walking around the hallways trying to fix all these problems. And she's obsessed with food. She gets so excited over food. Like, I get more excited about food, I think, than my fiance does. So when I see scenes like this, I lose it because it's so relatable. And she tries so hard for love, and she makes so many cringy mistakes, as we all do. Liz Lemon is such a good reminder if you have really strong career aspirations that you need to have those cringe moments. And it's funny because she's not necessarily a character where you see her and you're like, I want to be her on the surface. You know, she doesn't wear all of the nice fancy clothes. It's pretty clear that she's shambly. But it's kind of underneath that you see, wait, on the surface, she's this woman who can't find love, who's obsessed with food. But underneath, who does weird dances, she actually is really successful. Like, she had this dream of her and Jenna going to New York City and having their own show, and they did that. And that's really impressive. Usually it's the opposite. Usually it's you see a woman in pop culture on the surface and she looks so fabulous, but underneath things aren't going as fabulously. Liz Lemon tends to be the opposite, where on the surface she looks like a mess, but inside she's actually doing great. So if you're feeling a little bit like, oh man, I feel like I look like shambles to everybody around me, I'm constantly bothering my friends about all of my work problems and my life problems, you might not actually be that bad. This is like the second time she's also stolen a baby thing. Like, there was the first season where she actually stole a baby and then she got baby shoes. And it's like these subconscious underneath things that she doesn't mean to do. It kind of reminds me, if you've seen Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, she actually plays Kimmy Schmidt's therapist, where by day she is all put together, a super great therapist, but at night she gets super drunk and is a completely different person and completely like forgets who she is, basically. She has these two alter egos. I feel like that's popping out. I feel like this might have been the inspiration. All these subconscious things coming out in her that she doesn't even realize is happening. She's aware that she sometimes doesn't know how to manage her staff. She's aware that she's constantly trying to figure out how to manage Jenna and Tracy every single day. She's even aware that she has an issue with finding the right guy, but there are things buried underneath, just like for you, that like maybe don't come out even in therapy, or that maybe don't come out to your friends. But when you sit and think about the way that you work day to day, it's kind of like, ooh, wait, that thing might be holding me back. So Liz Lemon stealing kids and kids' clothes is to your unconscious limiting beliefs. So if you like connecting your manifestation in life to pop culture, definitely follow along. I have an entire girls series on my channel, and let me know what character I should do next. Because the untold lore of Liz Lemon can help you understand the untold lore behind all of your unconscious beliefs and why you're working so hard to achieve your dreams, but maybe you don't feel like you can get there yet. Because pop culture can teach us so much about ourselves and the human condition as a whole, and the fact that we're not alone. Liz also does such a good job at representing when we get really misunderstood. Whenever we feel like there's a peak in her career, like for instance for this book, there's always this huge valley of she's like, okay, great, finally I've achieved this next thing. And then there's this valley of, oh my gosh, how many people have I offended with this? And that's the reality of pop culture characters in general, especially in comedy, is we get to this high and we just know, okay, what's gonna happen that's gonna bring us to our low. It's a good reminder too when we're at our lows that there's always gonna be a high, but not to get too proud when we're at our highs. What I find really hard is, I mean, she did a good job basking in her having her book and that time where she had a show. So it's like, where's that balance between celebrating in the high, but also being like, let me not get too cocky because who knows what's gonna happen. The only reason NBC picked up the girly show is because of flack they got. That I felt that in my heart. Imagine if you had been achieving a dream for so long and the only reason you got it was because like you're a woman or because of your race or because of someone you knew. And it almost feels like, did I earn this? But then you get into this conversation of what is earning, you know? Like you think of Nepo babies and there's a lot of really, really talented ones out there. And I bet every single day they wake up and they're like, I didn't deserve this. I didn't earn this like other people. I was listening to an interview with Zasha Mamet from Girls, and she was talking about how she was in an audition once, and one of the casting directors found out that she was David Mamet's daughter, and she literally didn't even get a chance to audition because he kept asking, what is it like to be David Mamet's daughter? And what a burden that must be, not just internally, but externally with your career. Sometimes I wish that I had family in the entertainment industry, because man, would it be so much easier to start getting roles because of that, but I can also see the weight that that must have. And she still powers through every single day. I mean, you know that she earned it. You know she was an amazing theater tech in college, and she's clearly an amazing producer in this show, even though they joke so many times that like the show does not really do well. So it just goes to show you that there's different ways to success. Back to the subconscious, the scene where she finds out that she has actually been night eating. And it's always these things that happen either completely subconsciously, like when she takes the baby, she turns around and then she ends up in her apartment. And here, she's like, I was genuinely trying. There are so many points in our lives where we're like, I'm genuinely trying. I'm going to therapy. I'm like applying for jobs or whatever it might be. But there's this subconscious thing that's happening that's stopping us. Like, what part of Liz Lemon is inside of us that is stopping us from achieving what we want? Going back to the being misunderstood thing, part of my coping mechanism for maybe like making a joke and not being understood by it is just being like, you know what, I'm being a Liz Lemon right now. So many uncomfortable moments that might come up for you, like in jobs where you make a joke and people don't get it, or you say something to someone and they completely misconstrue it. Kind of goes back to cringe is part of the process of becoming successful. She also has a lot of episodes where she's like wagering and saying like being single versus being in a relationship. Like being single, I can make it work without being in a relationship. And obviously, if you're single, there's been times that you've probably thought this too, where you're like, okay, let me try to equate what my life would be if I was in a relationship. And to be fair, so much of society, I feel like, makes it easier to be in a relationship than to be single. Think about like renting or buying a house. Like if you're single, you're paying more. You're paying more for groceries. You're paying more for a lot of things if you're single. I love this relationship between her and Jenna because they both have the same dreams, but they are completely different people and they execute it very differently. Like Liz is a producer, so she's managing a bunch of people, she's managing skits, she's having to navigate legal stuff with Jack and all the corporateness of it, and Jenna is like the most vapid actor as a whole. And it reminds me of how I find that I compare myself to a lot of people who I listen to in podcasts and interviews. And I remember when I was in college and I would listen to people who would talk about like how they had got on Broadway, because that was a goal of mine. You know, I'd be like, okay, so I need to basically have the same origin story as they do, or the same audition story. They'd be like, oh, you know, I went into audition for this and last minute I changed the song. So I'm like, okay, so all I need to do to get on Broadway is to change the song last minute. But it's a good reminder when you think of like Liz and Jenna is that we're all different people, and even if we're gonna have the same goals, things are gonna be executed really differently, and we're just, as a human being, we're gonna walk the earth completely different than someone else. So using other people as inspiration and excitement, accountability is a really great way of doing that, but comparing ourselves to other folks, especially when we have different goals too, can be really hard. I mean, I realized I'm like, there is only specific Broadway shows that I'd want to be in. And so if I'm comparing myself to someone else who's in an interview, like automatically their career, I'm not going to want their exact career. Like you're never going to want someone's exact career. There's always going to be something about it that I bet you change. I also want you to think like, what is your Dennis? So we think of Dennis and Liz Lemon as that guy that she's always going back to, and she knows that he's not great, but she's like, listen, you're there, you're convenient. Think about Dennis as that subconscious behavior that you're doing at night, like the night snacking that she gets caught on camera to do. Like, what are those things that you keep falling back on, that you might be subconsciously doing, that might be restricting you from actually finding that right guy, achieving that dream? Even just personifying it and thinking to yourself like, oh my God, is this my Dennis right now? I bet could be really helpful for you. I think my Dennis is like spending the entire day on the computer and thinking that that's gonna like help me achieve my dreams more. Like the more output I have, the more money I will make. As soon as I put the laptop away and manage that, like it always becomes 10 times better. But my inner Dennis is always coming out and saying, come on, Kira, push, 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 instead of trust. When you know the untold lore of Liz Lemon, you actually know how to manifest your dreams more. Beneath all of the really funny moments that obviously makes this show incredible, there's so many lessons that you can learn from her and her dynamics around everybody else to make your life just so much more magical. Liz is so much of the girlies that I know are watching this, is the food obsessed girlies have their dream job or maybe are achieving their dream job and like know that they're so excellent at it, but have a bunch of unconscious, subconscious things that are in their way going to drive us forward if we just have maybe a Jack in our lives to help guide us. If you like this Liz Lemon breakdown, go ahead and watch my Girls series next. Thanks so much for spending this time with me, and I will see you next time. Bye, friends.